Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. It is May 1st, 2017, and we are very, very excited and honored to be able to continue our series on the transgender experience or transgender experiences within Mormonism and post-Mormonism. We've already interviewed Kimberly Anderson. She has been amazing. We also did a panel with four transgender individuals last week, and we're going to continue that this week with my interview with Alex, and then tomorrow with my interview with London. So I'm just really thrilled. So happy to be doing this live. We've got 32 people joined us so far on Facebook Live. We want to welcome you all and invite those of you joining us live to feel free to share your comments and questions, and we'll try and get to those as we can throughout the show. I'll just, in by way of introducing Alex, Alex, you are 16, is that right?
That's correct.
I met Alex and his wonderful parents when I went to Kansas City to visit the Kansas City Oasis. Alex and his parents were attending the Kansas City Oasis, and I learned of Alex's story, which involves not only their transition out of Mormonism, but also Alex's transition. He was assigned, I guess I'll say, my understanding is Alex was assigned the female gender at birth, but then during his teen years, he transitioned genders from female to male. And today we're going to be talking about not only his family's transition out of the church, but what his experience as a trans man has been, and specifically what it's like to go through that transition as a teen and as a transitioning Mormon / post-Mormon teen. So lots of transitions going on. But
that's right. It gets a little complicated.
Yeah. Alex Autry, welcome to Mormon Stories.
Thank you.
So it's such an honor to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So just to begin, we'll jump right to it. One of the questions that's most often asked is, how did you experience your gender as a child, as a young child? What are your earliest memories of your experience in that regard?
I have several really early ones, probably from 3 or 4 years old. One of the clearest, gender, I want to say, probably one of my earliest recollections of gender dysphoria, as probably had when I was 3 or 4, and it's funny how closely it ties to the Mormon Church. My dad got home, and we got home from church, and my dad had taken off his tie, and I picked up the tie and put it around my neck, and I walked into the kitchen and I said, "Dad, will you teach me how to tie this?" And he, really, really kindly, squatted down next to me and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You don't need to learn how to tie a tie. Little girls go to church in dresses. You don't wear a suit and tie." And he walked away, and, didn't think anything of it. But I walked out of the room sobbing, and I didn't know why. And I mean, now it makes sense. But I really had incredibly strong emotional ties to gender already. And the very strong gender lines in the church about what you wear to church.
Right. So, and that was, you said at age, which age?
3 or 4, not quite sure. Okay. Young though.
Okay. And so just to talk quickly about your Mormon background, were your parents pioneer stock? Were they converts to the church? Were you born in the covenant?
My parents were both joined the church as teens. So they were lifelong members. They both joined as teens. Yes, they did.
They're in Missouri?
Both of them joined in Southeast Texas.
Okay. But then they got married. And do you have siblings?
Yes. Both of my parents were married before they were married to each other. So I'm one of 8.
Okay.
Actually.
Got it. Okay, great. So do you remember, what else can you talk about, let's just say from age 3 to age 12, how that experience, how that development how you experienced it, and what was going on for you internally as you were sort of growing up with the assigned gender of female, but maybe feeling differently inside. What was that process? Take us through that process.
There were, okay. So starting at age 3 or 4, that sort of, always having the desire to wear masculine clothing, never wanting to wear feminine clothing, but still wearing a dress every Sunday to church. And so developing really negative feelings toward the church in that respect, in that I was super uncomfortable every time I went, because I was having to wear a dress and I wanted to wear a suit and tie. As I got older, that only increased, as I could tell that even in primary and then in young women's, how much other women in the church, other young women in the church were really kind of growing into their roles and really learning to take on and accept responsibility as female members of the church. And I was also taking on those responsibilities, but totally feeling disconnected from it. Even before I was 12, I was seeing the boys in my branch preparing to receive the priesthood, and that is all I wanted to do at that point in time was be with them, getting ready for that, and knowing that would never happen. I had a lot of disconnect with clothing and with obviously with pronouns and that kind of thing.
And did you have any way of understanding that as a young child or even as a young teen? Had you read about transgender issues? Were you able to put a vocabulary to it, or was it just this cognitive dissonance that you didn't fully understand?
No, I didn't. I probably didn't hear the word or understand the word transgender or gender dysphoria like that until I was probably 13, I imagine.
Okay. And had you ever had that conversation with your parents or with leaders? I feel like a mistake is, I feel like something hasn't gone right. Early in those years, let's say by 12, would you have expressed it that way, or would you have not expressed it that way?
No, the only time we talked about it is when I was a stereotypical tomboy, and I was trying to be steered away from that. But there was no, I very much wanted to be comfortable living as a female, because I felt a really strong responsibility in the church to carry out feminine roles, and I definitely did not want to express to anyone that I felt anything wrong with that.
Okay, so in your mind, you just were trying to do the female thing, but inside feeling torn, wanting to do the male thing. Is that
Exactly.
fair to say?
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, great. And by 12, you wouldn't have had your finger on what the issue might be.
No, I definitely felt very masculine, and can remember thinking, wow, I really do not feel very much like a girl, but there was no, I'm a boy, like that didn't go through my mind at that age.
Would you have been, so when you talk about stereotypical tomboy stuff, would you have been really into sports and super strong or talented or aggressive as a, expressing as a female young kid playing sports? Were you really into it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's go outside and roll in the mud and throw a football, and definitely very, very masculine in my choices like that.
Did you get any feedback from peers? Let's just say your playmates, your friends. It's bullying or negativity or just judgment or celebration. How did your peers experience you as a child and as a young teen?
Truthfully, I don't think they really thought much of it, because I had been expressing that way as long as anyone knew me. And also, I've been a nerd for a really long time, so it was already a little bit weird to them. So that wasn't just another layer. They didn't really think much of it or say much to me about it.
So did you feel ostracized by your friends? Did you feel totally accepted?
No, I did not feel ostracized. I feel very connected and very accepted, and even did then feel pretty accepted.
Okay. And that's both in the church and outside?
Yes, because I acted differently in school than I did in church.
How were you different?
I tried very, very hard to be, the proper little lady in church, but I relaxed it a little bit in school. Really, pretty well did my own thing within societal boundaries.
Okay. Did you feel like, let's say at age 12, you had a relationship with Heavenly Father? Did this ever enter into your prayers? Was this a thing between you and Heavenly Father? And if so, how?
No, it really wasn't, because I don't think I wanted to talk about it with anyone, not even to him. No. And I will say that I had one of the strongest testimonies of any 12-year-old that I've ever met. That was a huge deal to me. And no, that never came up in prayer or anything. I did not want to talk about it.
Okay. So you would have thought of yourself as having a very strong traditional Orthodox testimony.
Yes, very strong.
You were a believer and all in. What was your testimony based on? What would you say it was based on?
It was, I don't know, everything, just firm belief in the gospel, seeing how the church had impacted people in my lives. My parents had been members for so long, and a lot of my family members. So it was a lot of a traditional thing, but also I had a lot of spiritual feelings. I read the book as Mormon as much as possible. Had a lot of friends who were also very, very faithful and active, and we talked about that and encouraged each other in that way.
Okay. So for you, the church was very much tied to your identity.
Yes.
And your worldview.
Yes. I was very, very proud to be a Mormon.
Okay. So when did things start unraveling, let's just say, in terms of the church? Because as I understand it, things unraveled in the church before your transition, gender-wise, or did they happen in parallel?
I didn't start transitioning. I didn't come out until after I'd left the church. But I definitely think I knew I was transgender before we left the church.
Okay, so talk about like your awakening. Let's just say your transgender awakening, and then how that fit into the church as it progressed, or didn't fit in.
Right. I think social media is amazing. The internet is amazing, and it for me and for so many other people with queer identities, I know that being able to connect with other LGBT people online has been such a part of their transition and their coming out. And for me, that's where I first saw the word transgender and learned about gender dysphoria. And so somewhere around age 13, I really developed that transgender identity. Really felt that.
Do you remember like what you saw and what happened in your mind? Like, do you remember that moment you sort of like connected and what you were watching and what?
Yes, I was reading. I don't remember where I was reading, but I was reading an article about transgender people, and they had some terminology at the beginning of the article and like defined gender dysphoria as feeling discomfort with the gender you're assigned at birth. And it was just that moment of, that's me. I feel that every day of my life. That's other people can feel that too. And that was really, an aha moment of, okay, this just isn't feeling weird. This is a very real thing that other people experience.
Okay. And so you immediately associated that with yourself.
Yeah. It was very instant.
And then how did you square that with your beliefs, and did it scare you? How did you do that reconciliation?
It was very scary, because I was then split into two parts. One part of me who still wanted to try and grow up and marry a returned missionary and have a family and be the very stereotypical Mormon, and the other half of me that says, no, you're transgender. That the rational part of me that says you're never going to be happy like that. And so it was a very definite war of trying to act female while very well knowing that I was male.
And so did it? How did it start coming out? Did you internalize the distress? Did you start talking to people? How did you cope with it? How did you cope with it? And how did you not cope with it?
I didn't talk with, I talked to several people online, but no one in my actual everyday life. Everything in my real world life was very internalized. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Wow.
So how long did you keep it inside?
Um, Probably at least a year and a half once I knew that I was transgender. Probably at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
I just can't imagine keeping that inside for so long.
Yeah.
What was that like to hold that inside?
Very stressful, because it was constantly walking on eggshells and being very careful of what I said and what I did, and don't get too comfortable, and being very, very, very careful of how I felt and how I expressed emotion and that kind of thing, and trying to make myself more comfortable and appear more outwardly masculine, while still appearing feminine enough that nobody would question me or ask me about it.
Yeah, that's just a lot for one kid to carry, right?
So much, so
What
much.
kept you from being able to just tell your parents immediately?
Because at the time I realized I was transgender, they were still faithful Mormons. And I hate to, I mean, I really don't like throwing people under the bus, but I'm going to. Um, my dad was very homophobic when I was growing up, very, like, very homophobic. And that was um, very scary and very worrisome. And so when I realized I was LGBT, of course, how am I going to tell dad? I wasn't so sure about mom, but how am I going to tell dad? So in that sense, it was very easy to keep it in just out of being afraid.
Right. So, what what types of messages did you get from the church? Like, do you remember lessons being taught or things being said, at that age that made you feel better or worse about what you were going through, in
I
addition
don't
to your father's
I don't
positions?
remember exactly when this all happened as far as a timeline. Whether this, I mean, I think it happened several years before I realized I was trans. But the church's involvement with Prop 8 in California really alarmed me, even before I realized I had a queer identity. Um, and so once I realized I was trans, I could easily remember back to that and remember that, this is probably not going to be a very safe place to be. If I come out, this is not going to be very welcoming. I don't feel. And so that was very worrisome. And of course, all
Right.
the stuff, the marriages between a man and a woman, that was very alarming. And while that has nothing to do, while homosexuality really has nothing to do with being trans, society all kind of lumps it together under LGBT. And if you're one, they're gonna accept it as also.
Right. So, do you remember feeling like the church had a position on these types of issues?
Oh, very much so. Yes, I think reading the Family Proclamation of the World is very clear in that gender is eternal, and um, before you were born, your gender was decided, and when you die, your gender will be the same. Um, and I could tell that from personal experience, I did not feel that was true. And so to read that and have that being taught as something that was true uh, was frightening because I disagreed.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember the proclamation on the family being read, and did that hit you in any way?
Um, no, I was um, I was very good about reading lots of different types of material in the church, so I'd read it several times, but there was never one time where a realization of, oh, this is in here. But it was always in the back of my mind.
Okay. So, so what caused you to? I mean, who did you? Okay, so you had some allies online, but you hadn't come out to your parents. Who was the first person in sort of your real life that you came out to in your family or friend circle or church wise?
I have kind of an interesting story with coming out. I came out twice. Um, I came out as lesbian first because at the time that I came out, I felt that identity fit me best because I hadn't really started um, coming to terms with my transgender identity. I knew I was transgender, but I did not feel comfortable saying that word aloud or vocalizing that part of me. I felt that it would be more accepted if I came out as gay, since I am attracted to females. So that's what happened first.
So
And we had already,
what age did you come out as lesbian?
I would say 13, 13 or 14. I would say 13.
And how'd you do that if your dad was so homophobic? Like, how did it happen?
I came out to my best friend first.
Okay.
In the summer of
Mormon friend or not Mormon friend?
No, not Mormon friend, just a school friend. I want to say summer of 2013.
Okay.
Came out to them, and they were the only one that knew for quite a while, for several months. And then in January of 2014, my family left the church, and rapidly had some position changes as far as how they believed on social issues. Really a 180 on a lot of things happened very quickly. And so in March of 2014, I came out to both of my parents as gay. And then
okay, so your parents leaving Mormonism made you feel comfortable coming out to them.
Oh, it was a relief. It was a complete relief.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was incredibly traumatic leaving the church, but also incredibly relieving in that we now are free of this religion telling my parents how to believe about homosexuality and LGBT issues. So, they're more open and accepting now.
So by the time you were ready to come out as gay to your parents, had you lost your faith inside?
Yes.
So you lost your faith independent of your parents? Or did it kind of happen?
It all
parallel?
kind of happened pretty quickly. I started questioning the church a couple months before my parents left. But then when my parents left, we all three left together. And I lost my faith very quickly.
What were your questions? Was it around gender and sexuality, or were there other things?
No, it was about I remember sitting in a young women's meeting and reading something from the Book of Mormon, and then them going on and me going, okay, but what if that didn't happen that way?
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately pushing that away because that must be Satan trying to lead me away. But that happened several times of me going, but what if Joseph Smith didn't translate the Book of Mormon? And so, those thoughts were kind of on me. So when my parents left the church, it was very easy for me to let go because I'd already had some doubts.
Now, when adults go through that questioning, sometimes they can get caught in years and years of depression or sadness or, cognitive dissonance, because their whole worldview is built around this religious perspective. And so to unravel it is a non-trivial thing. And sometimes it takes years. It sounds like for you, it wasn't as conflicting to start questioning and doubting your faith. Is that true?
That's very true. I mean, like I said, I've been a nerd for a long time. And for me, I really value information and knowledge and truth. And if I believe something isn't true, I want to know, is it true or is it not true? And so for me, having questions about anything was a very logical part of my thinking and a part of my life. I'm always questioning, and I want to know more.
So for you, in evidence, and particularly intellectual, rational, scientific evidence is sort of primal, and you just feel like your disposition as a teen was to follow the evidence, and you would follow it whether or not it kept you in the church. Your allegiance was to truth and to evidence, not to something else.
That's right. As a Mormon, I would like to think that would be my number one priority and my number one motivator, but it wasn't. I had very, very deep instinct for to learn the truth, and that overpowered in many ways overpowered my Mormon allegiance.
So, at any point, did you study Joseph Smith or the Book of Mormon or Book of Abraham or polygamy or any of those sort of intellectual issues to decide what the historical record and the evidence showed with respect to the church's truth claims?
Not until my parents left the church. That was really, I really tried to push my questions away because I wanted, I had so many other battles going on with trying to stay in the church. I did not need another one. So I really pushed that away. But once my parents started questioning the church and then left very quickly after beginning questioning, that's when I learned all the information, and that's when I left.
Okay. All right. So if we had hit you up right before you found out your parents had lost their faith, and you were willing to admit that you had lost yours, if I had said, Alex, Why did you lose your faith? What would you have said it was the reason at that point?
I lost my faith because there wasn't enough evidence encouraging me to keep it.
Okay. And what were you looking for in terms of evidence? What about just the spiritual witness, the emotional stuff you had felt at church?
I've always been a student of psychology, and I realized that feelings don't have to be based on anything rational. They don't have to be based on anything empirical. So,
What about the idea that emotions can be evidence of truthfulness?
That's a tough one. I guess it was good, but I guess it wasn't good enough.
Okay. All right. So you find out that your parents lost their faith in Mormonism. You feel a huge sense of relief.
Yes.
And then you come out to them as gay. Is that right?
Right. That's correct. In March of 2020.
How was their response?
Just about as kind and loving as it could have been.
Even your dad?
Yes, even Dad.
That's
Even
great
Dad. It was amazing. They were amazing.
Okay. And once you guys had all decided to leave, did the church try and keep you? Did the ward people try and stage an intervention? Was it just a clean break? What was there gossip in the ward? Like,
No, that only lasted a couple days. They were, I don't know, I feel like they were pretty much done with us when we were done with them. I mean, my friends were texting me, and wanting to know what was going on and why I wouldn't message them back and why I wasn't at church and that sort of thing. But after the first few days, that all kind of stopped.
okay. Now, were you guys you're in rural Missouri, right?
Right. We were in a branch. We actually traveled an hour every Sunday to get to church.
Oh, wow. So that's a big sacrifice. Not a big branch.
No, very small.
Okay.
So small, in fact, that our young women's presidency wasn't, there wasn't a Beehive's presidency and a Laurel's presidency, that kind of thing. There was, for all the young women, there was a youth, like, young women's president. And then the first counselor was responsible for the Beehives, and the second counselor was responsible for the Maids, and the president was responsible for the Laurels. And in fact, I was the first counselor in the young women's presidency when I left.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
in charge of the Beehives. So.
Okay. So the church kind of just fell off the map within a matter of a week, and it was out of your life.
For me, it was.
There was no attempt to talk to your branch president or priesthood leadership or any of that stuff.
No. Okay. We sent in within a couple of days. We sent in a letter to get our names removed from the records of the church. So after that, there was no contact.
And really quickly, do you know why your parents left? Do you know what it was that caused them to leave?
Yes. My mom was watching a video on YouTube about, I want to say about the Amish, and there was a recommended video on the side. And basically the gist of the title was, former Mormon bishop leaves church, tells all. And mom was very interested in that and went to click on it, and then remembered, we're not supposed to look at anything that could cause us to question our testimony. And mom goes, you know what, I'm 57 years old. I think I can handle it. I think I can watch this without questioning my testimony. Turns out she couldn't, because once she watched that video, she watched another video and another video, and basically didn't sleep for 3 days, and just kept watching videos about church history and Book of Abraham and polygamy and that sort of thing. And then, showed my dad everything, and then they showed me everything. So.
Got it. Okay. So at what age did you come out as gay?
13.
Okay. And then how did you talk to us about the sort of like what happened between then and you coming out as trans?
I knew within probably a month of coming out as gay that it was just not going to work. That this was great, that my parents know this part of my identity, but they're missing, this is one piece in the overall larger puzzle, and I've got to show them the overall larger puzzle, because for them this makes sense. For me, this isn't working.
Yeah,
I
because
need to understand.
sexuality is totally different than gender.
Exactly. So fixing one, it was like putting a Band-Aid over the issue of my queer identity. Like that wasn't solving any problems.
Yeah,
Two separate things.
you're basically saying I'm attracted to women, but but core to your identity is your gender expression, right?
Right, right. Like, who am I attracted to women as?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the foundation, isn't it?
Right, it is.
So how did you? So what was that like coming out as trans?
Honestly, much more difficult. I remember, so clearly. I don't think I'll ever forget. I remember exactly when I came out to my mom um, as trans. We're sitting in a restaurant. We just sat down with our food. It was just her and me, and I sat down, and we were kind of sitting there in silence, eating for a couple minutes. And I looked up and I said, "Mom, you know how I came out as gay?" And you could just see her face went white. Like she knew that this conversation was going to go somewhere that she was not super prepared for. And she said, "Yes." I said, "I think there's something else." And she said, "What do you mean there's something else?" I said, I think I'm transgender." And almost immediately, big tears started rolling down her face, from fear, and I think in lack of understanding about what being transgender was, and just total uncertainty, because we pretty well know what being gay means. I think most Americans know what being gay means. I think a significantly fewer number of Americans know what being transgender is. And so that all, really was a weight on her shoulders.
And so she cried, and then did that begin a period of difficulty or of learning? How did it
Uh,
go from crying to what?
we just didn't talk about it for a couple of weeks. That was it. Like we had that conversation, and that was it. We really didn't talk about it for several weeks. I want to say that was in May of 2015, and then in June of 2015, I attended Missouri Scholars Academy, and I was gone I lived at the University of Missouri for 3 weeks. And that was an incredible experience, because if you'll remember, in June of 2015, that's when the Supreme Court passed marriage equality in all 50 states, which was an incredible experience for me to be surrounded by all these incredibly bright individuals while this was happening. Very, very different crowd than I was used to. And then I got home, and she said, "I called the gender clinic at Children's Mercy. They're going to call us back. We're going to talk to them." And that was amazing that my mom had taken the initiative to take that step forward and be so willing to help me, because I know that was hard.
So what'd you learn? So, okay, did your dad have any reaction, or was it just not talked about with your dad?
No, we really didn't. No, I guess not. I really don't remember having a whole lot of conversations with Dad about it. Maybe only one or two. I think most of Dad's education came like secondhand from Mom, like Mom talking to him about it. But I really didn't talk to Dad a whole lot about it.
So what'd you learn at the clinic?
Well, we called them first, and they told us, they had one question that was the main question. The first thing they asked, they said, "Have you ever are you currently suicidal, or have you ever had thoughts of suicide?" And when I said no, they said, "That's great, but we kind of have a good news, bad news situation. The good news is that's awesome that you've never had thoughts of suicide. The bad news is you now go to the bottom of our list as far as getting into the gender clinic."
Oh my gosh, that's like a reinforcer to be suicidal.
Yeah, because we are swamped. We have way, way more cases than we can handle. Our clinic is not big enough. We have a massive waiting list. And I want to say it took me, they set my appointment 3.5 months out. It took me 3.5 months to get into the clinic.
Yeah. And how'd that feel?
At that moment we made the appointment, I don't know. I'd already waited 2 years. I'd already known I was trans for 2 years. What's 3.5 more months?
Okay. So that
at least
there
was kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, finally, I'm going to talk to somebody about this.
So when someone assigned female at birth is looking at transitioning, and something Kimberly is really good to talk to us about is that people need to be really sensitive about not invading someone's privacy. So I want you to only answer questions, only talk about things exactly at the level you're comfortable. What are the things that you had to think about biologically with your body or whatever?
Right.
What is that process like to contemplate that transition? I know that there's a talk of hormones, or T,
Right.
as I learned it's referred to, but talk about
Right.
what are the things you have to think about and experience as you're transitioning.
Okay. Well, I don't know if she talked to you about the concept of passing.
No. What is that?
Okay. Well, it's a super controversial topic, actually, in the trans community, but we use this term passing. What that means is you were assigned a female at birth, but you look male enough that in general society,
passing.
they use male pronouns to refer to you, and they are super comfortable. Like they wouldn't know you're trans, and that's why it's super controversial, because some people don't want to hide their trans identity, and it really enforces gender roles in the way we view gender in society. But for a lot of people, it's very important that they pass in society. And so, as a trans person who was assigned to female at birth, my big job was to make my body comfortable enough for me that I was passing in society, and people were using male pronouns, that I looked male enough that people would see me as male.
So that's a transition. So is that sort of a middle road to transitioning then? Is that what you mean? You come out as trans, tell people if you change your name, what the new name is, tell people the pronouns, but maybe nothing biologically has changed yet. Is that what you're saying, or am I missing something?
Not quite. I think passing really matters most when you're dealing with strangers. So the thought is that if I, as a trans male, pass, that means that a stranger is going to come up to me and say, "Hi, sir, how are you doing?" That sort of thing. That, like, without any prompting, they're going to see me as male. And at that point, I pass.
Okay. And so you're saying are you saying you looked male enough to where you could pass? Is that what you're saying?
In a lot of circumstances, yes. My mom reminded me of a great story. When I was younger, I want to say probably maybe 8 or 9, we were in line at like Subway or someplace like that, and the guy behind the counter looked at me and he goes, "Do you need a girl toy or a boy toy?" So even that young, I was presenting masculinely enough that, strangers were already kind of questioning my gender identity long before I was seriously questioning my gender identity. And so when I came out, before I was on testosterone, because I am on testosterone now, but before I was, my voice was low for a female voice, low enough that sometimes I was gendered as male. My hair was fairly short, so I was gendered as male quite often.
Okay. So tell us what things a trans male kind of has to think about as they can contemplate a transition. What are the main questions or decisions that a trans male would have to make or think about?
Okay. And of course, all of this I'm answering as far as like my
your
opinion
experience.
and how
your experience.
But
I'm asking you this without asking you to tell us details of what your actual experience was.
No. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. They need to consider what they're wanting to transition, because I know a lot of people who transition from female to male are already super comfortable with parts of their body, and do not feel the need to change them in any way to be comfortable in their bodies. But a lot of transmasculine people definitely want to change things. For me, I really did want my voice to get lower, and my voice has gotten lower because of testosterone. That was something that was important to me. I worry about how my chest looks a lot, because that is a thing that society really uses as a gender marker.
So there's something called top surgery, right?
Yes. Top surgery is kind of the, how should I say? It's done to reduce chest size and make make a chest look more masculine in appearance. And there are lots of different ways that's done, and there are lots of different places you can get that done.
And my understanding is it can be quite a significant surgery. It's not a trivial surgery.
Yes. Cost-wise, it can cost from like $7,000 to $13,000. Require hospitalization for several days, lots and lots of recovery time. It's a big deal, but the impact it can have on trans man's mental health, the benefits far outweigh the costs for a lot of people.
Okay. Okay. So there's top surgery, and then there's whether you take testosterone or not.
Right. Which I would say in the United States is, at least where I live, way easier to fund. Because for me, I was young enough when I went to my endocrinologist that she did not want to put me on testosterone. I was too young. She said, you would start changing in ways that boys your age wouldn't naturally train. You would be hitting puberty too early for normal masculine people that were assigned male at birth. And so she wanted to put me on an estrogen blocker, which would kind of put me in a pause to where my body wasn't becoming more masculine in appearance, but it wasn't becoming more feminine in appearance. All chest growth would stop, and my hips wouldn't widen. That sort of thing. It would keep me from going further into female puberty. But that my insurance refused to cover anything related to gender, and it was they say it was going to be like $1,000 every two months or something like that, out of pocket, which I could not deal with. I couldn't cover, and so we said, okay, wait just a couple months. Can we look at testosterone? And she said, yes, I feel fine with that. You seem mature enough. We can look at that. I said, how much is that going to cost? And she said, well, at the dose you'd start at, probably $13 every 2 months. And that was a relief. I can handle $13 every 2 months.
Right. Now, there are health risks with testosterone. Is that true?
There hasn't been a ton of research done on it. Yes, there are some health risks. Clearly I'm not an expert, and I haven't been on testosterone long enough to see anything manifest, but they say that later in life they can, if you don't remove internal female organs, that they are higher at risk for having cancer in that area. So the risk for ovarian cancer goes up if you're on testosterone.
Okay.
But a lot of trans men opt to have surgery to remove that anyway. So it's just a consideration.
Okay, great. Okay, so for you, what were the important milestones of your transition for your family and friends and schoolmates?
Coming out to my family, coming out to my school.
How did you come out to your school? Now, you don't live in just a ritzy, upper class educated, you don't live in Berkeley or Manhattan, right?
No, so far from it. I live in an incredibly small town, well under 1,000 people. I attend a K through 12 school, all in one building. In my high school, there are about 70 people, probably 60 people. So very, very small. So when I decided that I needed to come out to my school, we had a sit down meeting with, all the administrators and the counselor and the school nurse, and took several hours to kind of lay out, here's what's going on. I was the first person to ever be openly trans at my school. I know that there, statistically speaking, must have been trans people before me, but I'm the first one to openly transition in my school. And so it was all very new to them. And so we talked to them for several hours about it. And the superintendent at the time stood up and said, okay, so when are we going to tell the rest of the students? It was kind of, okay, well, it became very real. And I said, do you want us to do it or do you want to do it? And I said, no, I want to do it. And so that same day, they called a faculty meeting after school. I went and talked to all the teachers and staff, K through 12, explained to them what was happening, and said, tomorrow at lunch, during high school lunch, I'm going to come out, because my entire high school eats in one lunch shift because there's so few of us. And so that's what happened the next day. The principal said,
How are the teachers?
Amazing. And I think it comes from me being a very well-respected person in my school and my community. I think, had I been a troublemaker, why would they have any reason to be nice to me or to do the right thing in my favor? But because I'm incredibly involved and incredibly active in my community, why wouldn't they be accepting and loving? And
you're kind of a super good student, right?
I'm pretty good, yes.
Okay, so you told the teachers, and then the next day?
Yes. My principal said, okay, we have someone that needs to talk to us. And basically I stood up and said, my entire life, you've known me as someone, and I used my birth name, and I said, you've known me as this, but that's not really who I am. My name is Alex. I am male, and I am currently in the process of transitioning from female to male. So I use he, him pronouns, and my name is Alex. And if you have any questions, ask me. So,
and how are the students?
Amazing. The entire football team sits at one table, and they all stood up and cheered and clapped. And
oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
It was amazing. And then when lunch ended, they made like 2 rows on either side of the door as I walked out, so I got to like talk to everybody, and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
It's like a celebration almost.
Yes, it was.
Oh, that's incredible. What made them want to celebrate you? Just because you were well liked?
Yes, and because I think they could tell that there was an immediate change. Like there was an immediate lifting of weight off my shoulders. It was instant. The moment I said I use he, him pronouns and my name is Alex, like I could feel within myself, and I knew that they could tell that something had changed.
Yeah, that's so special.
I wasn't worried about coming out to my classmates at all, really, because my even though we live in a really rural area, I feel like they have some very progressive ideas among my classmates. I was worried about their parents. Their parents who have lived in rural Missouri their entire lives and have very, very conservative, closed-minded views of things. The Bubba dads who have to take the beer out of their truck before they come to the football game. Those types of people. I was very worried. My mom slept on the sofa in our front room by our front door for like 2 weeks, just thinking, so nobody would burn our house down. Like, we were worried about that. I wasn't worried about the kids. It was the parents that concerned me.
And were the parents ever violent? Have you guys been mistreated in any way in the community?
They weren't. In fact, the one dad that I was like really, really concerned about, he commented, or his wife commented on one of my mom's Facebook posts when I was going to some competition, like, "Way to go, Alex! Hope you do great." So it hasn't turned out to be the concern that we thought it would be.
That's so amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. So has it been smooth sailing since then, or have there been complications? And how are you doing now?
No, it's been pretty smooth. I was able to get on testosterone. I'm probably about a year and a half now. I'm not sure. I got my name changed, which was an easy process. The judge was super, super nice, and that was no problem. There really have been no problems. It's kind of, we were a little scared a couple of months ago, as I am graduating this year and we'll be going to college, and the prospect of like, how would I deal with dorm life and as an already transitioned person, how would I enter college and how would I deal with those sort of things? But those have turned out to be just fine. And really no major concerns. My college has been incredible in working out dorm situations and that sort of thing, in bathroom situations. So it's been awesome.
Are you comfortable sharing where you're going to school?
Yes, I will be attending Central Methodist University in the fall.
Okay. And they've got no problem. Will you just be going into male bathrooms and they're cool with that?
Yes, they're totally fine with that. I will be living in a co-ed dorm, not co-ed by room, but within the dorm itself, it's co-ed. So that's really great. I really wanted that. It's going to cost me some to not be in a freshman boys dorm, but to be in a co-ed dorm. But yeah, totally fine with bathrooms.
Is not wanting to be in a boys dorm just out of like not wanting to deal with potential problems for kids who might have a problem with it, or?
I really do not feel comfortable showering in a community shower type of
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
of scenario. I would much rather have a shower in my room, which is going to probably be the case. So
That makes sense.
that was really my main concern. I didn't want to do that.
That sounds great. Makes total sense. Okay. And so you're thriving. It sounds like are you graduating from high school soon then?
Yes, in 2 weeks.
As a 16-year-old?
Yes.
Is that because you're like ahead of your grade kind of thing?
Yes, I skipped 2 grades, so I am ahead.
Skip 2 grades. Are you on scholarship to your university?
Yes, I'm on an academic merit scholarship, a choir scholarship, a band, and a band scholarship.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you miss church? Do you miss Mormonism?
No.
Why not?
I feel that sometimes I'm a really musical person, so for me, the really only thing that I miss is singing hymns, and not for the lyrical content, but for just kind of the choral content of it. But other than that, I really don't miss being Mormon, and I'm not religious at all anymore. So, and I don't really miss that.
Okay. So you miss the music. What about the relationship with God? Do you consider yourself a believer now? Are you just a Christian? Are you an atheist? Like what are your beliefs now religiously?
No, I'm an atheist. So I don't really, I realize that anything could change, but I don't really see myself being anything other than atheist in the future.
And why is that? Can you talk about how that happened? How you became an atheist, so to speak?
Yeah, I feel like once I questioned Mormonism and really took a good, long, hard look at Mormonism and realized that, I believe that and now I don't. I took a long, hard look at religion as a whole and decided that wasn't something for me anymore. That I didn't believe that anymore. I don't. And I looked at other religions too, like not just Christianity, which is obviously what I was raised in. But I looked at other forms of religion and said, no, I don't think those are for me either. I don't think I need those in my life.
Okay.
But I did say that I was attending Central Methodist University. They said they promised they'd love me anyway. So
that was okay.
Yeah, I mean they said they'd give me half off tuition if I were Methodist for a year, but I said no, hard pass.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're feeling good about being an atheist. Do you worry about death and whether you go to heaven and that kind of thing, whether there's an afterlife?
No, I don't worry about that at all. I wasn't worried about it before I was born. Why should I worry about it after I die?
So like if there's no Alex once you die, you're not bummed about that?
No, I think the point is to live now. And if there's no Alex after I die, I hope to have accomplished everything that Alex wanted to do.
What about this idea
of
of seeing your family in the afterlife and,
Doesn't worry me. Doesn't bother me. I don't think about it.
but you love your family, right?
Yes, of course I do. But I don't. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I guess I've reconciled the idea that once I die, that's it. For me, as far as what I believe, and should I arrive in the afterlife and there's God, well, I was wrong. Shoot, nice to see all my family again. But
what about the idea of someone atoning for your sins?
I don't believe in sin, so that's not atonement. Doesn't really.
Do you believe that there's good and bad behavior?
The psychology, sociology side of me is really going to kind of play in here. I don't. I think good and bad is largely determined by society and not, and by how we think it's easiest to live. I don't necessarily think that there are good things and bad things. I think we can always bring up the is it bad to speed? Yes. Is it bad to speed if you're, somebody's going to have a baby and you need to get to the hospital? Well, probably not. So good and bad are very flexible.
But like killing somebody is wrong, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't advise that.
If somebody says you need a religion to be moral, what would you say?
You may need a religion to be moral. I don't. I think if you need a religion to be moral, you need to take a good long look at what you think morality is. Because I'm doing just fine. I haven't killed anybody.
what about, stealing and lying and all those sorts of things?
I think society and the laws, the laws of man, as they would say, do a pretty good job of convincing me that those aren't things that I should do. I think I can very, very naturally see that, lying and stealing aren't good things to do. Because
What do you base your morality on?
I feel like my morality is ever changing, but it kind of comes down to three things. If you hurt people, I don't know. That's not even very clear.
Sounds like you use common sense.
Yeah, that's it. Would you want someone to do it to you? Then don't do it. Really,
golden rule.
Golden rule.
What do you hope for yourself in terms of, in terms of relationships, love, family? Do you have hopes and dreams that way?
Yes, I do. I do hope to get married someday and have a family. That is very, very much something I want and look forward to.
And you're attracted to women. So you consider yourself straight? Gender queer, but
currently I'd say I identify as straight.
Okay. Did I see a photo of you going to a dance or something?
Yes, you probably did see my prom pictures.
You went to prom?
Yes, I did.
With a girl?
Yes, I did.
How was that?
Amazing. It was awesome. And
so the whole school knows that you're trans male. Did she talk about that? Was that an issue? Like,
no, not at all. If I wasn't going to make a big issue of it, they weren't. And my girlfriend has a queer identity too, so like that's a big part of connecting.
So you have a girlfriend?
Yes, I do. The girl that I took to prom is my girlfriend.
Oh, she's your girlfriend. Oh, excellent. Okay, fantastic. Congratulations. That's fun.
Thank you.
Did you ever imagine yourself having a girlfriend at age 16?
No, I didn't.
What's it like?
Pretty great.
Congratulations. Okay, so someday you do want to get married?
Yes, I do.
And you want to have kids?
Yes, I definitely want to be a father.
Okay, excellent. All right. So, let's just say there's some Mormons or believing Mormons watching who are trying to make sense of this whole issue. What would you say to them as it relates to their education around the transgender experience and Mormon beliefs?
I don't think there's any really clear answer. I think there are a lot of things within Mormonism that would cause hostility or confusion towards people who identify as trans.
Do you have a plea for the church? What you would wish the church would do?
Yes, let people be happy. Please let people be happy. And if happiness for them is transitioning, please do not call them sinners for that, and please do not look down upon them for trying to be happy while they live on earth. I'm not something broken to be fixed. If you think that by being Mormon you're going to be able to fix all the broken things, look past me, because I'm not one of the broken things you need to fix.
That's beautiful. What if they were to say, hey, Joseph didn't leave any accommodation for transgender stuff. The priesthood, gender is eternal. We really can't budge on this. This is sort of the way that God has revealed himself to us. What would you say?
As a post-Mormon and non-religious person, I'd say I'm fine with that. If your members are fine with that, that's fine. But I know it's not that easy, because I know there are transgender members of the church that would have to deal with that. And to them, I would say there have been policy changes in the past on things that you said you wouldn't change. So maybe consider it.
Right. What would you say to a young transgender Mormon who hasn't come out yet? What would you say to them in terms of advice?
Look online. There are lots of Mormon LGBT groups that are very welcoming and happy to help. I know I'm a member of one right now.
Where are some places people can look for support?
Facebook's great.
Is there a specific group a trans youth can join?
Not specific for trans people, not that I know of, but I'm sure they're out there. It's just because I haven't looked for them.
Okay.
Because that hasn't really been something I've needed as of late.
So you're just saying, are there websites for trans kids that you're aware of, like really good websites, sources of information?
Man, I really wish I could name some
Oh,
off.
it's okay. It's okay.
No, no, sorry.
So your advice is educate yourself, get online. Any
Yes.
other advice for a trans kid?
No, not past educate yourself and look online. Be very open to your identity changing. And I know that's really scary. But I'm assuming at some point you identified in some way as the gender you were assigned at birth and as straight or what have you. And that changed as you looked inward and realized things. And it's important to realize that those feelings could change again the more you look and the more comfortable you feel with yourself. So don't feel like you have to be set in this forever, and that like once you decide I am transgender, like that title fits you. Don't think that has to be set in stone for the rest of your life. Your identity can change.
But isn't that scary? Because sometimes you make decisions transitioning that can affect your body or the rest of your life. And so this idea that it may not be fixed, I would imagine that could be scary.
It is scary for me. In my specific case, I don't have any feelings that conflict with my transgender identity. That is very, very set and fixed for me. And so I felt very comfortable going on hormones and transitioning because I didn't feel I didn't feel that was going to change. But I know for some people choose not to go on hormones for that very, very reason, that they know that their identity could change, and they're very aware of that. For me, I didn't see that as being an issue, but it is something to think about, and it's kind of scary.
So you're saying if you're feeling mixed, take it slow and don't rush it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Do not rush into transitioning. As much as you want to go and transition, and it feels, like it's never going to happen, and you want everything to happen so quickly, please take your time. Please analyze your feelings. Please educate yourself on what you're doing.
If somebody were to accuse you of this just being a fad, oh my gosh, Caitlyn Jenner, transgender stuff is kind of a fad, and there's this risk of youth seeing the fad and jumping on a bandwagon. I know that's an incredibly insulting question, but I know people think it. What would your response be to someone who had a concern about youth jumping on a bandwagon?
Transgender people are murdered in the United States every single year. There have been several murdered in Kansas City already, which is the nearest big city to me. You wouldn't transition. You wouldn't transition if it weren't what you needed. You wouldn't. There is too much emotional and physical pain to even think about doing it to jump on a bandwagon.
What would you tell a youth in terms of just their mental health, their happiness, their anxiety, their depression? What would you say to them to encourage them as they're trying to figure this all out, go through it?
Somebody proposed to me several months ago that the idea that LGBT could stand for something else and that life gets better today, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that it may seem like the light is really far off, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that it does get better. And you will graduate from high school and you will move out of your parents' house, and life will go on. It may not seem very possible now, but there is hope and there is help available.
So get it. Okay, so have hope and life gets better.
That's right.
All right. Well, I guess the thing that we always like to kind of end with is kind of what you believe now. And I would love to just ask you, Alex, to share with us kind of your closing thoughts, your secular testimony, as it were, of what life means to you now, and any final thoughts you have about your experience that you would want to share with someone who's trying to learn about this or trying to listen. What would your closing thoughts be?
For me, the overall gist of life is that you need to live for you, and that there is so much to be had in the world, and there's so much to see and so much to do, and that finding personal happiness for yourself is the most important thing that you could ever find, and that just because my happiness doesn't look like your happiness doesn't mean that it isn't happiness.
So find out what makes you happy and do that.
That's right.
All right. All right. Well, Alex, you're inspiring, and I'm really thrilled that you were willing to share your experience with us.
It's been great. I love talking about it, and I love showing other people that hey, you can transition. It does get better.
All right. And do you know what you want to be when you grow up? Do you have an idea?
My current plan is to major in music education and be a band director.
Nice. So you're a band geek through and through.
Yes, all the way.
All right. All right, Alex. Well, tons of love and respect to you from the Mormon Stories community. Your parents are awesome as well. We wish you the best. And we just want to thank you for being willing to share your story. We know that a lot of people are going to be inspired by it. Is it okay? Will you monitor kind of the comments on mormonstories.org?
Yes.
And if people have questions or concerns, maybe you could answer them.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to.
And we'll try and moderate and delete anything that's disrespectful,
Right.
obviously.
Okay.
All right, Alex. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You're a real inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
And listeners, thanks for joining us. Please do comment at mormonstories.org. If you want to ask Alex questions, make comments. Please be respectful and kind. Want to thank everyone who donates to Open Stories Foundation, Mormon Stories. You guys keep us going. Please do donate if you value this content. 10 or 20 bucks a month recurring can make all the difference. So please do share if you can, and that'll keep us going. And we're going to be interviewing someone tomorrow as well. In her case, a trans female. Actually, on Wednesday, her name's London, and we're really excited to kind of close out the series. So please tune in as well. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us online. Alex, thanks again, and we'll see. Hope to see you soon. Tell your parents hi.
I will. Thank you very much.
All right, take care, Alex.